What is up, everyone, and welcome back. I like how you leaned into that. Welcome back into our YouTube show. If you don't know, God, our YouTube channel. If you don't know, we are Kara and Caleb.
I'm Kara.
And I'm Caleb.
We have a YouTube show. Wow, what is up, everybody? I like laughing with you.
Yeah.
It's good.
Mm-hmm. You laughing with me or at me?
With you.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago?
I think so.
We did a video on purity culture and how it almost ruined us. And kind of talked about...
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Kind of talked about different ways that it had affected each of us individually. It's not funny. I'm laughing at something else. We're off to a great start. So, we talked about ways that purity culture was really destructive for each of us.
Yes, we did. Do you want me to go? We talked about purity culture.
Hold on, I want to do it. We talked about purity culture and... I feel like I'm laughing gas.
Well, why are you laughing? This is serious. People are feeling the weight of the shame that comes with living. No, I'm laughing. Okay.
Okay. Woo!
We're not making light of this in any way.
That was a good laugh. Here's the deal. 2 weeks ago, we made a video about how...
Purity culture. Oh, did you get... Okay. Get yourself together, and I will talk for a second,
No,
okay?
don't talk. I want to do it. Okay. So...
I'm crying.
So...
I'm crying.
My nose is already...
This sounds awful.
You look like you're crying a lot.
I am tearing crying.
Oh, man.
Or tearing crying? Okay, seriously.
What is tearing crying?
I don't know. I make up words. I don't know how I'm a speaker sometimes with the shit that comes out of my mouth.
You do make up a lot of words.
I make up a lot of words. Anyways.
You said earlier, when you were saying such sexual urges and desires, you said...
What did I say? Well,
you said sexual urgency.
okay.
Hold on. We're coming back.
Why did you not correct me?
Because you were in the middle of flow and I didn't want to make you feel, out of flow.
Okay.
Wow.
4 minutes in. We would like to start our video now.
So, 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
we made a video about how purity culture almost ruined us. And we talked about the ways that purity culture infiltrated each of our lives individually and kind of spread out into our adulthood, and talked about the destructive messages that we really embodied and carried with us, and then the ways that we had to kind of unpack that.
And a lot of people responded saying that they could identify with our stories.
I think it's a pretty common experience.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
And I know for me, just to give you a quick recap, because there was no space inside of the church to talk about sex, and I talked about this in the last video, there was no space inside of our homes to talk about sex or to have a sex positive conversation. And what that inevitably kind of did was, it didn't give us a space to explore our own sexualities in a healthy way. And so as I begin to grow and as I begin to mature into a young adult man, all of the sexual urges or tendencies or just thoughts that I would naturally have, inevitably, I thought that they were bad, right? There was a kind of a bubble of shame just wrapped around all of this, all of these experiences. And because there was no safe spaces to talk about any of this, I repressed it. I thought that because I was feeling it, there was something intrinsically wrong with me because there was no safe spaces to talk about it. So I repressed it and I denied it. And I just tried to move on from it. And I think I would honestly say that so much of the very much toxic masculine behaviors that I demonstrated throughout the majority of my adult life were because I was never given a healthy space or taught how to process all of these emotions that I was feeling as I was growing up. So I repressed and denied all of it. And I became a very angry, rage-filled man.
Yeah. It's
at
like,
one point in time in my life. Yeah.
it's like when you tell someone that their desire is bad,
Yeah.
you're going to interpret that you were bad. And so
Yeah.
you lock it in. I think for me, I said this in the last video, but the biggest piece for me of damage was that I grew up really believing that my body was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe your body is bad, then you don't trust it. And you also see it as an enemy. So I lived most of my life at war with my own body and really didn't know how to lean into the wisdom of the body. Thought the body was sinful and would lead me astray and was full of fleshly desires. And most of my healing journey and my journey towards healing has been coming back home to my body, realizing that my body is my greatest ally, that it is always telling me the truth, and it's on my team. So I feel like those were kind of the big themes in each of ours.
Just like when you disconnect from your body, when you live disconnected from your body, you live a very disconnected life.
Yeah. But on today's video, we wanted to offer some practical ways that both of us have healed from this and unpacked in our personal lives kind of the damage that was done. And we wanted to offer this because, again, after so much conversation and engagement around it, I think we can all acknowledge that purity culture was incredibly destructive. The messaging of it was so, so destructive. But then the question becomes, how do we unpack and unravel and move forward with what we know now? So we wanted to offer 3-4 practical ways of starting to heal.
And I will say that Kara and I started this journey independently, right?
Yeah.
Apart from each other, way before we even met. And so
that's very true.
I think it's important to know that we started our healing journeys individually. And if you are on a healing journey inside of a partnership, marriage, relationship, whatever it might be, it might look a little different, but hopefully what we talk about today can point you in the right direction. And just to kick it off, I know that for me, one of the biggest things that I had to start doing was I had to start talking about it, right?
Yeah.
I needed to find safe spaces in my life to have safe conversations about what I was feeling when I started to recognize the voice of shame coming up in my life. And when it comes to having these very brave conversations,
super brave.
They have to be safe. You have to feel emotionally safe. And so, man, I can't tell you how many times I created more chaos in my life by having conversations with people who were a part of my life, but not emotionally safe because they had not yet gone down their own healing journey, right? And they didn't know how to handle or hold space for me. I can say from every ounce of my being that one of the most healing moments of my life was actually early on in my relationship with Kara. And we were having a conversation. We were laying on the bed when we were living in a garage. That's a whole other video. But we were having a conversation and we're laying on the bed, and inevitably this conversation, because my wife loves to ask deep, hard questions, and she started to ask me questions about sex and my history with sex, and just asking me some just curious things, not drilling me or anything, but she could tangibly feel just the wall go up on me. Like I was shutting down. And that was my natural instinct, was just like, I feel very exposed. I feel very vulnerable because at this time I still had a lot of shame that I was carrying around some of my past decisions that I've made in life and just my sexuality in general. And I was shutting down as she was asking these questions, but I remember she asked me straight up, because she felt it, she was like, "Are you shutting down?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And she goes on to say, like, "Are you feeling like shame?" And I started tearing up, and I was just like, "I am." And then she obviously makes light of this, not makes light, but she like helps like kind of diffuse the situation by, like blowing shame out of the room. Like, shame. like go. And I started laughing.
Sometimes you gotta laugh a little
Yeah,
bit.
I started laughing and it really diffused the situation. But in that moment, we were able to have such a hard and such a brave conversation that really, at the end of the day, allowed me to shed all of these self-protective garments that I've been wearing. And in that moment, I have never felt more seen and more known up to that date in that moment. And as a byproduct of allowing myself to be so seen, to be so known, and for her to hold such space for me to have this conversation, I can probably speak for both of us when it created such a bond between us, and a deeper intimacy and a deeper trust as a result of that. And so I just cannot encourage you enough to find safe people, and maybe that looks like friends in your life that can hold space for you. Not to tell you what their thoughts are or what they think you should do, but just to give you a safe space, a landing pad to unpack all of the inner narratives or the things that have happened to you. And if you can't find a safe space, obviously, there are therapists out there, right, that are here to help you specifically with this. And so I think when it comes to shame in general, like Brene Brown says it so well, shame needs three things to survive: silence, secrecy, and judgment. But the moment we speak it, right, shame cannot live. Yeah. And so find that safe space and start talking about these things.
One thing I want to piggyback really quick on that is, you kind of mentioned this, but what does a safe person feel like?
That's good.
A safe person is not going to tell you the answers. Oh. A safe person is not going to say, well, read this Bible verse, that's the answer. And I think that's the danger sometimes with opening up to people, is that if they don't know how to hold something, their response is going to be, oh, that's too scary, let me tell you an answer, as opposed to just being able to hold it with you. So if you're looking to really work through something that feels messy, you said this, but it's so important to find people who can hold space. Yeah. So whether that's joining a group, getting a coach, getting a therapist, finding a friend who knows how to do that really well. I had to be very, very particular and have strong boundaries when it came to processing certain things around this culture, because I knew that some relationships just didn't have the capacity to hold what needed to be held.
Yeah. It's just unnecessary grief and unnecessary drama that you can prevent by just being very calculated. Yeah. And make no mistake, sometimes you feel incredibly alone. Yeah. You feel incredibly alone until you find those people, right? Because you naturally want to open up to the people who are closest to you. But if they don't see eye to eye with you, if they don't agree with you, if they don't validate your pain, you can feel real alone. And I will say, like, if you are out there in this season and you're trying to find community, feel free to reach out to Kara and I. We'll definitely hold space and listen to the best of our ability, to the extent of what social media will allow us to do. Yeah. But I also just want to encourage you to don't shut down your heart from ever opening up about this again because of somebody's inability to hold space for you. Yeah. Right? Don't shut down your heart, right? Because you're shutting down your heart, maybe protecting yourself from that kind of pain, but you're also preventing yourself from experiencing deep healing and deep love. Yeah. Number two.
The next way that you can begin to heal is a simple one: self-awareness. So this one, I think I'm really grateful both of us did a lot of self-awareness work on our individual journeys. And I think both of us have very curious, introspective worlds anyway. Yeah. But really, self-awareness means being able to look at yourself, being able to hold up a mirror and say, what's actually going on? So a lot of times I think when we're just operating in the narratives and the patterns that we've been taught to operate in. It's unconscious, and we're not stopping and looking in the mirror and being like, I wonder why I think that. Or, oh, interesting. Why did I react that way? So self-awareness is kind of building this muscle to be able to look at yourself and ask, why? Why did I do that? Why did I show up that way? Why am I thinking that way? I feel like this is a practice we still have in our everyday life, is to ask why. Yeah. What are the narratives I'm believing? What's the story that I'm telling myself? And this is a really powerful tool when it comes to healing from purity culture, because you have to start to understand is that this was a culture imposed on you. This was a culture, like a mass media cultural move that was imposed. And in the same way we now question how women are portrayed in the media, it's so important to question the way that affected you and be able to look and analyze and see and really be curious. That's the big piece with self-awareness, is asking, how can I be curious about this? Enter into this without judgment, without shame, and just have curiosity.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, because to piggyback off that, in addition to that, it's also self-awareness of the thoughts that you're having. Like, you have to understand, what does the voice of shame sound like to you, right? And I know that in a lot of times, it's so easy to get caught up and reactive to our emotional responses to different situations, right? But part of the healing journey is learn how to observe the situation. And that's the key to self-awareness.
Yeah.
When you can begin to observe your thoughts and your emotions from a place of curiosity and compassion, you create the space in your life to begin to actually work through and to accept and to heal, right? And so the self-awareness is key. So practical ways that you can begin to do this, and even that I began to do this, is I remember for an entire year, because I was the least self-aware person you've ever met in your life, the least. For an entire year, I carried like a little notebook in my back pocket, not a cell phone, but a little notebook in my back pocket. And anytime a phone would work, and anytime I felt any sort of uncomfortable emotions, I don't want to say negative, but anytime I felt any uncomfortable emotions, I would stop what I was doing. Literally stop what I was doing, whether it was driving down a freeway, at a shopping mart, or at a grocery store, shopping, whatever it might be. And I would just try to stop and try to think about, like, what thought patterns am I having right now? What thought processes are I'm having right now? Anytime those negative or uncomfortable emotions begin to just build up in my life, I knew that that was an opportunity for me to practice self-awareness and to get curious. And I also know that I was really hesitant to do this because I was afraid of what I would find.
Yeah.
Right? I was so scared that if I start honoring my
scary.
feelings, that they're going to just overpower me and I'm never going to get out of it. Or I was just so scared of seeing the depths of my brokenness, right? But I also knew that the way that I was at this time living my life, it couldn't continue. So there was really no other path, no other choice. And this was the journey of learning how to trust.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think creating the daily discipline to become increasingly more self-aware, and it's a lifelong journey, it's a practice, it's a muscle that you can build, on how to begin to identify when the voice of shame is speaking in your life is critical.
Number 3. This one's a piggyback on the last one. Feel your feelings.
Yeah.
This one's good. I love that you said that there's not negative feelings. I like that we call them uncomfortable feelings. I was raised in a home that really did not validate most feelings, or at least did not validate the negative ones. The negative ones were like, don't be sad, don't be upset, don't be angry.
And can I just real quick, like, I think that's obviously the byproduct of being raised in a church as well, right? Because we, for some reason...
Anger is a sin.
Not even a sin. Yeah, a sin. But there's no space to process those feelings because Jesus already paid Jesus paid the price. Like, pray more, read more, worship more.
Yeah.
Right? There was actually no...
Don't feel, just pray more. Yeah. Which is total spiritual bypassing, 100%.
Yes.
So feel your feelings. What we mean by this is really create a space that feels safe enough for you to explore all of your feelings. Yeah. Every feeling that comes is a messenger in some way. It comes with a message, generally to illuminate something that's going on in your inner world. So if you keep getting angry, or you keep getting sad, or you keep getting upset, or you keep getting jealous, or you keep getting whatever it might be, those feelings are coming to teach you something and to communicate something. And I think that feelings are messengers that need space. Like they're messengers that need to sit down at the table and actually tell us what's going on.
It's like a Rumi quote.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, it's like invite all the unwelcome visitors to have a seat at your heart's table.
At your heart's table. But they do. They need that. And I think most of us slam the door in their face, and then they all come rushing at once. Yeah. But if we actually create the space for them to sit down, I'm doing this because we're at a table, sit down at the table with us, then we can have this communication about what's actually going on and give space for that feeling to be heard. And generally when it is heard,
you're processing it.
Yeah, and when it's heard, it is ready to leave.
Yeah, so a big part of feeling your feelings is stop being so damn busy. Seriously,
that's good.
We avoid in the Western world, in the hustle culture and performance-driven, achieve more, do more, be more kind of lifestyle we live in. It's not so much about the performance as much as it's about avoiding stillness.
Yeah. What if somebody's like, I'm so busy. I'm a mom. I've got 4 kids. I
would
have
say,
a full-time job.
I have so much compassion for that, but what priorities?
What
Like,
is the way you could create a space?
Are we prioritizing your healing?
Yeah.
And so I think it's so incredibly necessary to create not just space in your heart, but the space in your life to process and to sit with these feelings, because again, ignoring them, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Anything that's not dealt with comes out sideways.
Exactly.
Always.
Right.
Goes
Or we
in
project
sideways.
it on the people around us.
Yeah.
And so feel your feelings. I know they're deeply uncomfortable, but the more that you sit with them, the more that you welcome them, the more that you give them the momentum that they need to just move through you. Emotions, like emotion, like energy. I'm still learning this. Believe me,
They've got to be. They have to be moved.
They
through.
definitely do.
Yeah.
But that was number 3. So here we are. Last and final point, number 4.
Reconnect to your body. This is my favorite one.
It is.
This covers all of them for me because it brings
really
up
does.
all of them.
Yeah.
Reconnecting to your body. So I think with this one, what I want to say is, especially as a woman, relearning that my body is good was very powerful and very difficult. I think part of that has been through embodiment practices. So things like breath work or meditation, slowing down, listening, touching parts of my body and saying like, Belly, how do you feel today? And again, it comes down to slowness and giving the body space to actually tell us what's going on. But I think the beginning to that is the reconnection. So many of us have walked away from our bodies for so long, and it's time to turn around and come back home to the body. Yeah. And so really it is a turning around of your perspective of, I've lived it at war with you. How can I make peace with you? I've lived fighting with you. How can I love you and cherish you and thank you for the ways that you show up for me?
And the real beauty and the gift of practicing these embodiment practices is it's bringing you back to the present, right? What shame does is shame disconnects us from the present, because the voice of shame says like it's not enough, right? Which internalized as I'm not enough, and so we either live in the past or we live in the future. But the embodiment practices and what Kara's saying, coming back home to your body, it's allowing you to really learn what it looks like to live from the present.
Yeah.
I don't honestly think there is a greater demonstration of the kingdom of God more active here on earth than when we are living in the present. When we live in the present, we, as my wife would say, we unlock our lives physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. And so much of the journey that we're on is learning how to do just that.
Yeah.
It's bringing us back home to our body so that we can center ourselves, live in the present, and from this place of presence, we live more aligned and in flow.
Connect to your body.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. If you are on this journey and there are things that are working for you and you're willing to share it, we would absolutely love to hear from you.
The more tools, the better.
Yeah, the more tools, the better. Yeah, what she said. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again with a new video next week.